Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around the very virtual water cooler today as we gather around together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And you know, just when it seems like the sky is darkest, the clouds break open and a rainbow of all the glory that is Robert Meyer Burnett comes down forth to earth like a descending Mary Poppins from the sky. Robert, you floated in today. How you doing?
John, it's the first day of spring, and damn, I'm feeling like Mary Poppins, y'all. So you're right.
Is it really the first day of spring?
Yesterday was, to be honest.
I never keep track of that stuff. I never know what the season. I mean, there's snow out. There's winter. I mean, actually, ever since moving down to Los Angeles from Canada, I've lost all sense of the seasons, because without winter, I don't have any sense of the season. So I'm never able to keep track.
Well, you know, there was I don't know if it's still there. There was a strip club in Seattle called the Lusty Lady, and they were known for their puns on their sign outside. They changed the sign, and spring is in the air and love is in the bear. That's what I remember. Every time it changes to spring, I think of that one saying, "Thank you, Lusty Lady." It's probably not there anymore, but what can you do?
Well, listen, guys, I hope you guys are making the best of your days. A lot of us are hunkered down at home and stuff like that, and I hope you guys are doing well being there. But there's always time for us to get together and talk about movies, movie news, television, all sorts of good stuff. And listen, before we get into any of our stuff, I like to go over a little bit of stuff from yesterday's show, because, you know, every time we do the show, you guys then watch it afterwards, and you leave comments in the comments section. I read them all, and often some real good stuff, some insightful stuff, some interesting ideas, sometimes some funny stuff. So I like to start off the new show by talking about some of the top comments from yesterday's show. And we're going to start off with a comment put on yesterday's video from Joseph D'Andrea, who wrote, just saw your video talking about how Spielberg is still the best out there, and I'm so glad you mentioned Lincoln. Such an underrated movie with an absolutely brilliant performance from Daniel Day-Lewis. That movie does not get enough credit. Can't agree with you enough on that, Joseph. I absolutely agree. Next up, BN writes, thumbs up for the Shaolin Soccer comment. One of my favorites. Probably watched it over 30 times. And I'm still not tired of it. Rob, we talked a little bit about yesterday about Shaolin Soccer. Did you, made by the same Stephen Chow who did, of course, Kung Fu Hustle, did you ever have a chance to watch Shaolin Soccer?
John, would it surprise you to know that I own Shaolin
it?
Soccer on DVD, not Blu-ray, but DVD?
Still, that's pretty. It's still like a lot for Stephen Chow. A lot of people say their favorites is Kung Fu Hustle. Mine is still Shaolin Soccer. I just love that
Shaolin
movie.
Soccer is so dope. I love Shaolin Soccer.
And its visual effects were ahead of its time. They really were. They were really impressive visual effects. All right, next one comes to us from Moodster, who wrote, oh my God, I love Mom and Dad Save the World. That was my movie recommendation yesterday. Mom and Dad Save the World with Terry Garr. I saw it like 100 times as a kid. I completely forgot about it, but now that you recommended it again, I'm taking a ride on my time machine and I'm totally watching it again. Thanks for reminding me it exists, and I love that one. And then our final one from yesterday, Helder Almedia writes, The Rock is too old to carry the mantle of Black Adam. We need someone younger so he can be in it for the long run. I disagree with that completely. The Rock is not 57 years old. All right? He's not 57 years old. And there have only been a couple of actors who have played a superhero character for 10 years or more. Like, it's extremely, extremely rare. He is the most physically intimidating presence in all of Hollywood. There's no Hollywood guy who is nearly as physically intimidating as The Rock with that kind of charisma. So I got to disagree, but not everybody thinks he's the right pick for it right now. And you are not alone in that opinion, Helder. I'm sure there are other people who feel that as well. I just disagree. That's just me, though. All right, guys, listen. Let's get into some topics here today. Now, before we get into our main topics, we're going to talk about some things off the top. And the thing we're going to talk about off the top here is this. You know, the other day, we were talking on this show, and somebody had asked about the notion of, hey, what if like after the shutdown is done and all that kind of stuff and the theaters are back open, what if they like re-release things like Bloodshot or re-release, Invisible Man or movies like that. And I said, the challenge with that is that if a month and a half from now you try to re-release it, now you got to spend more money in mounting another marketing campaign to make everybody aware that the films are coming back to theaters. And you're just not going to make that money back. So I can't see them doing that. But I said, the only movie I could really see doing that is Onward. I could see Onward doing a re-release when the movie theaters back open because, they're going to have to spend another 15 or 20 million on it, but I believe they'll make that money back in a re-release. So I think they could do it with Onward. I don't really see them being able to do it for anything else. Well, I got a call yesterday from somebody letting me know and saying, John, saw your show. I'm like, cool, yeah. He said, we've given up. It's not happening. We're going to be announcing that Onward is going on to digital as of tomorrow, and that on April 3rd it's going to go on to Disney Plus. They have just essentially thrown in the towel. And so then some short time after that came the announcement, came the official word that Pixar's Onward, they've just kind of given up. They've taken it that they're going to lose money on this movie. They're just deciding to accept that and try to make the best of a bad situation, which is what a lot of studios are trying to do right now. And it is on digital today. You can buy Onward today for, I believe they say it's going to be for $20. You can buy it on digital. And then on April 3rd, Onward is going to pop on to Disney Plus. So this is not a good situation for them. This is not what they wanted. This is not a good situation for them. They're going to lose money, but with this whole such shutdown situation, there just isn't a scenario where they weren't going to lose money. And so I thought Onward, to be full transparency, I thought Onward was going to be one of those films because it's a Pixar film. It's a big enough title that they could do a re-release and recoup any extra marketing they needed to do. Clearly, they didn't think that, and they've decided basically to throw in the towel on the movie, which is a shame because, Rob, this is a really good movie. Onward is a delightful, it's not top tier Pixar. It's not the best Pixar film or amongst the top 2 or 3 or 4 best Pixar, but it's a really good film nonetheless. It deserved better than this. And really, if they just decided there's no recovering from this, this was just a bad hand we got dealt. We're going to make the best of it that we can. We're going to put it straight to video now, Disney Plus later, so at least people can get some enjoyment out of it, even if we're going to take a financial bath out of it, which they simply don't see any way they're not going to take a financial bath on it. So from that point of view, I guess it makes sense. So I am at one hand really sad for Onward because this is a movie that deserved better. It really does. On the other hand, I'm kind of excited that I'm going to get to watch Onward again a little bit later tonight. So it's both sides of the coin. Rob, you hear about this story. I don't know. Did you feel like I did? Did you feel like this was one they could have re-released, or do you think just this whole shutdown situation doomed the movie anyway? And what do you think about their moves that they announced today?
Well, look, like you, I felt they maybe could have released it, but the question is when. Yeah. And the further out you get away from Onward, any goodwill that people had, any positive word of mouth, then it would confuse people. I mean, the movie was already in theaters. What about all the movies that have been taken out of theaters and need to find another place to be released? And I think, look, this is an unprecedented, unfortunate experience all the way around. And I think, look, if they can use Onward to drive more subscriptions, if people in this time everything. Look, this for Disney Plus to put a movie like Onward out right now, they're in business. It ain't show friends. I mean, now they're pivoting when they had to. They're trying to make lemonade out of lemons here, and by putting Onward on, maybe it'll drive up their subscription base, which is only a good thing for Disney Plus. And I'm a fan. I've talked about it. I'm a fan of Disney Plus. They don't have a lot of new content coming out on their platform. I think this is a good move for them. It was the right move. It was a decisive move. They did it quickly rather than vacillate. I mean, John, in the last week, we have seen the VOD and streaming landscape change. I'm actually quite shocked at what we're seeing. I mean, look at how many movies went VOD or direct to streaming in a week. I like to see the entertainment business. I mean, we're decimated. The entertainment business is a smoking crater right now, and anybody that can do anything to help in any way. I see this as a win. I see this as the studios making the tough calls, and they're going to have to do that for the next God only knows how long. So good on them for doing this. Unfortunately, can you imagine if we're still doing this show in 5 or 10 years, God forbid, people are going to be like, well, that Pixar movie, Onward, it didn't do very well. And we'll be like, yo, what's up? You were like 5 years old when you were looking at the box office then when the COVID-19 pandemic swept the world. You don't remember, but just hold your roll, son, when you're talking about Onward. There's a big asterisk next to it, so read that Wikipedia entry. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
so I think it's a good thing.
There's a number of films, and look, there's no getting around that. This is a no-win situation for all the studios. It's a no-win situation. This is going to, them doing this isn't good. Them doing this isn't good. This isn't what they wanted to do. But it's like, Rob, you put perfectly. It's simply them trying to make the best of a bad situation. It's like, okay, it's a crater. We've cratered on this one too. Onward's going to give us a financial bath because of all this stuff. Okay, there's no getting out of it. What can we salvage out of this? And I think you're absolutely right, because, one of the big mounting criticisms of Disney Plus is the fact that since The Mandalorian, you really haven't done much for us, Disney Plus. I mean, you've got the fabulous library, but, we get these new streaming services. We get these services. Yeah, the library's great, and it is. The library's great. But we also get these things for new content. People didn't sign up for Apple TV Plus for the new content. They signed up for the morning show, and they signed up for All Mankind, and they signed up for these new things. They're going to Amazon for the new things. And so this is them. I think it's not a good situation, but it is probably, I still would have thought they would have done a re-release with this one title. With this one title, I thought they would have done a re-release, but they're just doing the best they can, and it's an interesting situation. But selfishly, I'm just looking forward to watching it again later today.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait to watch it. I mean, Elizabeth and I love Pixar movies, but what I find actually the silver lining is all of this is it is sort of inspiring and heartening to see these companies responding to a very new situation. There's no vacillating here. They are making the tough choices, and they're doing it immediately. There's nobody sitting around going, eh. And what it says to me is there's leadership here. There are people making decisions very quickly. It couldn't have been, maybe they had it locked and loaded and ready to upload to Disney Plus already, but I really like to see that American companies are able to make these quick choices, and it's heartening. I find it relatively uplifting that people are able to respond to this situation, which we've never seen before, quickly and decisively, and turning things, they could have just wallowed me like, woe is us, but nope. They're moving forward. There's, can you imagine? We have to have the board meet, and whether we're going to define, are the taxpayers or the publicly are the shareholders going to like this? We have to have a phone call. No, they acted. They acted quickly and decisively. I like it.
Well, that's what happens when you have a guy like Alan Horn at the head rudder there to pull triggers like that. So anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about it? Are you really bummed out for Pixar that this really gem of a movie is going to suffer the losses that has? Or are you kind of like me, maybe a little bit selfishly, just excited I'm going to get to watch it again later today? What do you guys think about it? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that stuff down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime, 24/7, over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by NBR, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob, I just read that the Minions sequel has been delayed from its July 3rd release date. As far as I'm aware, this is the first real summer movie to be pushed. Do you think that more summer blockbusters will be delayed? And what could this mean for the summer movie season?" All right, thanks a lot, man, for sending that in. And yes, it's been no surprise hearing about certain films getting pushed. They were coming out imminently. But now we've got our first film in July, Rob. Minions, a big high-profile project in July, that far off, being pushed and being delayed. This is what we get from Screen Rant. Minions 2 is delayed because COVID-19 has disrupted the film's production timeline. It is definitely possible other June and July releases are in a similar situation. Animated movies in particular take a long time to finish, meaning Pixar's Soul could also be impacted. In the case of live-action films such as Free Guy, Ghostbusters, Afterlife, and Jungle Cruise, all July debuts, probably still visual effects to finalize, and the respective crews may not be able to do the necessary work. All right, so that came to us from, that's some analysis from Screen Rant, which is actually some pretty good analysis there. So, Rob, Minions gets pushed. And we shouldn't be surprised. We should not be surprised. And it's not because I don't think there's a chance that we may not have movie theaters open again in July. Here's why I'm not surprised it's getting pushed and why I fully expect very shortly to hear other big July, maybe even August, but for now, July movies getting pushed. It's not because I don't think there's any chance that the movie theaters won't be open again in July. Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I am optimistic that we will have movie theaters open again in July. But that's not the problem. Here's the problem. We are, 4 months out from July right now? March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, we're 4 months out from July right now. This is the period of time, and this is the window that you start ramping up your marketing campaigns for the movies you got coming out in July. This is when you start really ramping up those campaigns, and the studios and the distributors start pouring tens, if not hundreds sometimes, of millions of dollars into their ad campaigns. And I would suggest this, Rob, that on top of the fact that they're probably still working on this movie and now they can't because of everything being shut down. So that's one reason why Minions won't come out. The studios are in a position, Rob, that they don't know if the theaters are going to be open in July. They don't know if they're going to be back open or not. Can you responsibly go, yes, let's start cutting that $5 million check and that $40 million check and that $25 million check to start marketing these things heavily when you don't even know if you're going to be able to launch that movie in July or not? So, Rob, on top of all the other logistics of trying to get these movies opened, I would suggest that one of the other big reasons, because they can't market these movies yet, they're going to have to push some of these high-profile projects off just so they can have enough lead time and runtime to market them properly, instead of right now maybe throwing $75 million in marketing away for a movie that doesn't even open on time. So I'm not surprised to hear that Minions 3, or Minions 2, I should say, has been pushed. And I'm going to be surprised if we don't hear about more being pushed, because I think we're going to start seeing those July and maybe even to August pushed, even if we end up getting our theaters open by that time. Rob, you're seeing this. Any surprise here for you? And what do you expect moving forward?
No, I think you just astutely pointed out the problems. I mean, it's not just about opening. A movie doesn't just open, you know, in this day and age. And it's not just, you've got all kinds of, there's internet marketing, there's media marketing, media buys, whether it's on streaming or whether it's television or all, there's so much involved in marketing movies across so many different mediums and ways to do marketing that, like you said, what are they going to do? Throw good money after, or bad money after good, bad, whatever you want to call it. It's just not an ideal situation all the way around. And we're going to have to deal with the fact that, I mean, they canceled the Cannes Film Festival, or they postponed it. I mean, everything is getting pushed. I mean, I would dare say, I think 6 months, John. I'm wondering if we're going to see No Time to Die in November. I think that it, because that's what, like you pointed out, there is a lead time, a ramping up to these movies. If this situation hasn't really resolved itself, movies need that time. You're not just going to see them throw a in the case of No Time to Die, $250 million movie willy-nilly into the theater without re-ramping up a marketing campaign. I mean, hell, you can buy Life magazine's tribute to the James Bond films that was supposed to coincide with the release of No Time to Die. It's in supermarkets now. That was a whole magazine. How long did that take? And now it's come out months in advance because of this. They don't have that marketing. I mean, this is so far-reaching that who knows how long it's going to take.
I think mitigating, I think everything you just said is absolutely correct. I think possibly, though, mitigating some of that is once theaters get open again, I think there's going to be a big excitement in a lot of movie fans to just get back to the theaters. And maybe I'm just being overly optimistic again, but I think maybe that might mitigate a little bit of that. But it's interesting times. And again, I'm not going to be surprised, guys. We're going to start seeing, if for no other reason than just this marketing, like Rob's pointing out, there is a ramp-up period needed, and I think we are going to start hearing about July films being pushed, even if in my most optimistic of appraisals that the theaters are going to be open at that time. Well, question is, guys, what's that, Rob? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I'll bet you that let's say something good happens and theaters are open by July. I'll bet you there's also contingency plans to do sort of a high injection marketing campaign, hit and run, maybe 2 weeks out, even a week out, where they're going to capitalize on the fact that movie theaters are open and somebody's going to like rev into the theaters. They're going to try that. But the problem is, will the public, I mean, depending on how long you stayed sequestered away, is everybody going to be just stoked to jam into a movie theater after all of this? Or is it going to take time for people to get used to getting back into a theater situation?
It's going to be interesting to see. Guys, question is, what do you think about the delay of Minions? Maybe you're not surprised. Maybe you are surprised. If so, are you expecting to see more of these things pushed or maybe not? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by guy with the girl's name MPH, who writes, with the mass shutdown of theaters worldwide, let alone nationwide, could drive-in theaters find their niche? Going to see a movie in the safety of your own bubble, i.e. your vehicle. Do you think the handful of drive-ins seeing an increase in sales, as some reports around me? Furthermore, if this social distancing circumstances continues for many months and likely leave some people nervous of others, could drive-ins be coming back? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And it's great that you sent that in because Ann and I had planned on going to the drive-in last night. We ultimately decided not to go just because there was a good chance of rain. And we thought, we don't want to be sitting there in the car trying to watch a movie with the windshield wipers on. So we didn't go. We're planning on going another time. But you're not mistaken. Your spidey senses are tingling and your spidey senses are correct. As a matter of fact, somebody in the film industry sent me the official charts that the industry people get. And for this past week, 10 of the top 14 performing theaters in North America were drive-ins, ladies and gentlemen, which, I mean, from Sacramento, the Starlight, Paramount Drive, a lot of them in the Los Angeles area as well, as you can see there, but drive-ins being thing. I actually got a message from somebody saying they actually work at a drive-in and they were finding that their ticket sales had tripled, other than normal circumstances and stuff like that. And Rob, the reality is drive-ins are a overlooked and quite frankly neglected national treasure to me. I love drive-ins, and yet I've barely gone in the last 15 years. I love drive-ins, and yet I've never gone. It's just one of these things that most people I talk to, when you ask about the driving experience, everybody smiles. Yeah, the driving experience. But when's the last time you went? Drive-ins are a national treasure. And especially in days like today, with the things that are going on, when you can actually go to a movie, stay in the protective bubble of your own car, still maintain social distancing, not be around other people, and yet you're still being able to do something. It's kind of a neat thing. And again, these numbers, I think, speak a lot to that, that so many theaters, so many of these drive-ins have been doing well. Anyway, Rob, when is the last time, I'm curious, that you had a chance to actually go to a drive-in theater, and is that something you've considered? You and Elizabeth thinking about stuff like that. Is that something you've considered doing? What do you think about this little surge? And could we see this reintroducing drive-ins to the movie-going public, and maybe this will have positive effects for that industry moving forward, even after the crisis? What do you think?
Well, growing up where I'm from in Seattle, we had a lot of drive-ins. And not a lot, but we had drive-ins. And for my high school graduation, we all packed into a drive-in and saw a double feature of Terminator and Rambo First Blood Part 2. And at one point, because we were crazy and we were graduating, we threw ropes. We climbed up the back of the screen and rappelled down the front of the drive-in screen while the movie was playing. and we all got kicked out. But I haven't been to a drive-in probably 25 years. Because again, I loved drive-ins growing up, but as I became a fan of technology and wanting to hear thunderous surround sound, drive-ins, it was always the sound that got me, because you had to use the speakers that you'd hang in your car, and I just haven't been to one. But the experience of going to them was always fun, especially growing up. Like, we had a Ford LTD station wagon, and you could fit like 10 people in it. So, you'd paid per car. So you'd fit as many people in the car as you could. Not that you were getting away with much, but then you'd all go, and it was hilarious. And half the driving experience wasn't even watching the movie; it was hanging out. Going to buy your refreshments. It's like in the movie Grease. They go. Yeah. There's a big scene at the drive-in, and also seeing drive-ins in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What is it, Cliff Booth?
Yep, he lives around the back of one.
He lives around the back of a drive-in. I was like, oh, drive-ins are such a slice of Americana. I bet they could apply new technologies to them. And maybe, I don't know if we'll ever see drive-ins come back, but I love drive-ins.
Yeah, and now with the sound, like Ann and I researched the theater we were going to go to last night. Like, now instead of getting those big metal speakers you put up in your window or whatever, they now transmit on an FM signal, and you just tune in your sound system in your car. So
yeah,
we were all excited because we got our cooler out. We were gonna pack up the cooler with some drinks and some food. We were just gonna go watch, but the rain kind of got in the way of that. But anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about the whole thing about the slight resurgence of the drive-ins? Are you tempted to actually go to a drive-in theater? Do you think maybe people rediscovering the drive-ins could have long-term positive effects? I have my doubts about that, but wouldn't it be great if it did? What do you guys think? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Frank the Tank Grayson, who writes, "Hey, John, like a lot of other people, I'm stuck at home right now and pretty much rely on streaming services to stay sane. Just read that Netflix is going to be reducing the quality of their service by 25% to use less of the overall internet bandwidth, since more people are at home and relying on the internet more to do their jobs. Do you think this is the right move?" All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Frank. And just to be clear, some of you may have been hearing about that story about, Netflix is going to take a 25% bandwidth reduction. Right now, as of right now, that's only in Europe. But here's what the story is at the moment. This comes to us from Variety. Following the discussions between Commissioner Thierry, this is in the UK, Thierry Breton and Reed Hastings, and given the extraordinary challenges raised by the coronavirus, Netflix has decided to begin reducing bit rates across all of our streams in Europe for 30 days, a Netflix spokesman said in a statement to Variety. "We estimate that this will reduce Netflix traffic on European networks by around 25%, while also ensuring a good quality service for our members." And Rob, I don't doubt for a second that you're going to see the same sort of thing here in North America. So basically what happened is this. The governments of Europe went to Netflix saying, we have a concern. The biggest glutton using up all of our internet bandwidth is Netflix. And now with people working at home, having to do teleconferencing, we run the risk of having some system problems. And we would like you, Netflix, to reduce the amount of bandwidth that your videos are actually using up. Can you reduce your bit rate and blah, blah, blah? Netflix has decided to respond with yes. And I don't think it's going to be long before the North American governments, whether it's Canada, US, whatever, approach Netflix and start asking for the same thing. I know my wife, Ann, is working from home right now, and about 6 hours a day, she's video conferencing and she's teleconferencing. Now, I don't know. I am not an expert on the Netflix or of the internet infrastructure in America and the status of it and how much of a load it can take at this point. I'm not an expert, but it seems to me like if it's an issue in Europe, it would probably become at some point an issue here as well. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. Like if I get to, as long as it's not like 360 quality, on YouTube, you can set your, you want 423, 60, as long as it's not like 240 quality. Hey, look, 720 is good. I'd rather HD. Sure, I would. But if I had to watch it in 720, it still looks fine. It's perfectly fine to watch it as a movie. I'm good with that if that's what helps everybody get through the situation that we're in now. So I think this is a common sense response, Rob, that Netflix has made. I suspect at some point we're going to see the same thing in North America. And as a Netflix consumer, I don't mind. I mean, I'll look forward to it getting back to its regular highest definition possible. But if it makes things better for everybody and makes it easier for everybody to get through this whole thing, I'm good with it, and it's not going to affect my viewing at all personally. Rob, you are a dude who appreciates the finest quality, the best technology, all that kind of stuff. So you hear about something like this happen in Europe. What do you think about the move, and do you think it's going to affect us here in North America at some point?
Well, I understand this is a practical, just like Disney made the tough choice and they put Onward up on Disney Plus quickly. People have to move quickly and they have to respond to situations. But as a fan of physical media, John, I've spent my entire life wanting to see the best picture and sound possible. And this is exactly the reason that I collect physical media, because it is still the best way to, if you have a decent home theater system with surround sound and you've got a big screen, the last thing you want is to see your picture reduced by 25%. And I understand, I get it. But then everything is going to look like The Long Night looked when HBO is streaming it during the final seasons of Game of Thrones. And I'm just like, man, let me tell you, I don't want that. I don't want to watch movies with a picture that's reduced by 25%, which is why I've continued to buy physical media, and it doesn't affect me at all.
Well,
but yes, I think they're going to have to do it. I mean, look, it's the right move in this crisis. They need the internet. First of all, it's not just Netflix. It's like you pointed out, your wife teleconferencing. It's Gal Gadot singing Imagination or Imagine on the internet. It's everybody that wants. It's family members keeping in touch via Skype and other things. I mean, we need the internet for information. We need the internet to stay connected more so than ever. So I think Netflix, we can all deal with our picture reduced by 75% or 25%. And only get 75% there. Of course, I don't, because I just watch my beautiful collection of physical media. But it's something that needs to happen, and it is going to happen in North America.
All right, guys. So the question here becomes, what do you think about this move? Do you think this makes common sense? Do you think this is an overreaction? Do you think it's something we're going to see happen in North America as well? Do you think, like, as a consumer, it's not going to bother you that much? Or as a consumer, do you think it will bother you a lot? What do you guys think? Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fourth main topic today. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Samwise, who writes, "Hey, John and team. I know a lot of us are focusing on the whole virus situation, but a larger picture question about the MCU, besides Black Widow being moved, has really been on my mind. Yes, people got excited for Widow after the trailer, but I haven't felt anywhere near the excitement for the MCU since Endgame ended. There's some great looking stuff coming, but I feel like the glory days are gone. My question, I guess, is, are the MCU's best days behind them now? Thanks." All right, dude, thanks a lot for sending in that question. And it reminds me a lot, Rob, of that one scene in the Star Trek The Next Generation show, when I believe it was after Jean-Luc found out his brother and nephew died. And he was talking to Counselor Deanna Troi.
That was in Generations.
Was that in Oh, you're right. That was in Generations.
The movie.
And I remember there's a quote he said that always stuck with me, especially seeing this immortal character like Jean-Luc Picard. And he said, there's something, I can't remember what the word he used was, that comes when you realize that there are more days behind you than there are ahead of you. And it was a powerful, powerful moment in an otherwise somewhat forgettable movie, but a powerful moment. Nonetheless, actually, a lot of people like Generations. But this is kind of a question that reminds me a little bit of that. We've talked a little bit here on this show about the MCU and how is it positioned right now, because a lot of people felt like after Endgame, as great and as awesome as that whole climax was to the Infinity Saga and all that kind of stuff, a lot of people, and we've talked about on the show, kind of felt like a lot of the wind out of their MCU sails has kind of sunk out. Now, it is true, we have a lot of really good-looking stuff coming. Black Widow, which is a movie I've never been interested in, but the last trailer got me excited. We got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. We got Thor, Love and Thunder coming. We've got an Eternals movie coming. We've got a Blade movie coming with Mahershala Ali, for heaven's sakes. When you look to the world of Disney Plus, we got Falcon and Winter Soldier, whenever that eventually does come out. We've got WandaVision coming out. We've got She-Hulk. We've got Ms. Marvel. We've got Moon Knight. We've got there's a lot of stuff coming. There's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon that's coming. But the question becomes, can it ever reach the peaks again of what the MCU has been up until Infinity War, or up until Endgame, I should say? I'm going to say this. I think the MCU's best days are behind them. Now, understand, before you think that means I'm saying something really negative or doom and gloom, consider this. I would propose that there has never been a crime/gangster/mafia movie ever that's been as good as The Godfather. Or, all due respect to those fans of Godfather 2, let's say Godfather 2. But let's just say the Godfather movies. There's never been one. Some people may say Goodfellas. I respect that, but I disagree. Does that mean, though, we haven't in the last 40 years had some excellent crime, gangster, and mafia movies? Of course we have. Does the fact saying that, there's another gangster movie coming out, but will it be as good as The Godfather? Well, of course it's not going to be as good as The Godfather, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be awesome. It doesn't mean it's not going to be awesome. Rob, the MCU, you and I have talked about this a number of times. The MCU has been a revelation to a lot of people. It did something in the movie theaters that really hasn't been done. Just like when Star Wars came out, it did something no movie had ever done to the pop culture or the movie landscape. The MCU has done the same thing. It's done something different and weird and with tremendous success that we have never seen. And it is so unique. And I think that's what people think. When people see somebody do something, they instantly think it must be easy to do. What they have done and what they have accomplished is nothing short of miraculous. And I would suggest, while I believe there are great days ahead for the MCU, I think there are great days ahead of the MCU. I'm getting more stoked about Eternals. Obviously, I'm stoked about Thor, Love and Thunder, even though I don't like the whole Jane thing. But whatever, it's still Taika Waititi doing it. I'm stoked. I'm stoked about a lot of things. There are exciting, great times ahead. But I don't think they will necessarily hit the peaks and the crescendos that the days behind have. And much like the world of gangster and crime films, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. We still get great crime films and great gangster films. And yeah, none of them have been as good as The Godfather, and that's okay. They're still great. So while I think there are still great days ahead, Rob, I think the best days of the MCU are behind, but that's not necessarily, by any stretch of the imagination, a negative thing. Still great stuff ahead. That's how I see it. Rob, I know you've been very optimistic about a lot of the projects that we have coming, particularly the aforementioned Eternals and things like that. But the success, both critically and financially, of the MCU, what they have hit is just unprecedented. So when you look at the situation, Rob, you're Picard sitting at that table. Are the best days behind the MCU, or are the best days still ahead? How do you see it?
Well, I think that, look, they're unlike when the MCU first started with Iron Man 1, they didn't know what was going to happen. Was Iron Man going to be a hit? I'm sure when they finally saw the finished film, they're like, oh, this is going to be a hit. But they didn't really know. They were planning on it. Now they've got 11 years under their belts with the entire Infinity Saga, and they realized, okay, it's going to be impossible to repeat the success that we had with the Infinity Saga in the way we did it. I think they have an even bigger plan now. And I think what they're doing is they're going to develop a multi-pronged approach. And the next time we see, they're going to be building up to something that's even bigger. And what they're doing now is rather than they've got sort of like a one, before they had your top tier characters ultimately dealing with Thanos. But what was missing, I thought, was what was going on with the man on the street, during the Infinity Saga. And what they're doing now is they're building a multi-pronged approach to whatever. They're going to have the cosmic realm involved by bringing in the Eternals. They're going to bring in the Celestials more so than they've ever done. They're going to develop their cosmic, whether it's Fantastic Four and Galactus and Silver Surfer and all that. Then they've got their characters like Moon Knight and, say, She-Hulk, which are more earthbound characters. I don't think you're going to see them going into space anytime soon, but they're going to be able to they're going to have the man on the street kind of a thing, bring in Matt Murdock, whatever you're going to do there. And then you're going to have the Avengers that can bridge those things. So we're going to have a much bigger, more wider reaching storyline that is going to develop over the next 10 years that is probably going to be twice as big as what happened with Thanos. I mean, Thanos was just one guy in one snap, but what if you have a galactic war, and then you've got a war on Earth, and then you've got a war in the multiverse, and I think they're gearing up for 10 years of, and now there's more movies coming out, so they're going to be developing these multi-pronged approaches to something we can. It's going to be building up to something so huge where you're going to see. You thought the end of Endgame was big. I think what they're going to build up to when we see this in 20 or when would it be? I don't know, 2031. Whatever they're building up to is going to be 3 times as big as what we've already seen. And they're going to be building it up on Disney Plus. They're going to be building it up in the movies on a multi-track thing, and it's going to be bigger than we can possibly imagine, and they already know what it is. They already know. And they're starting, and they're planting the seeds. That's my optimism there. That's my Kevin Feige is my Lord and Savior thinking. Because he knows if he wasn't going to jump ship and go over to Star Wars or something, it's because he's planned something 3 times as big as Infinity War and Endgame. I believe it.
I don't know how you get 3 times bigger than all of the universe was about to be snapped out of existence. But that said,
we're gonna. Because we got a multiverse. All of the universes in every existence is going to be lost now.
And I don't think people are going to care. I don't think people are going to care. I don't think people are going to care about, but I don't think the average movie goer is going to care about multiverses and things like that. I don't know, Rob. I don't know that more equals bigger success. I don't know that more equals bigger. And I think we're overlooking the cult of personality and how important figures like Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, like Chris Evans' Captain America have been. I mean, there were people, I disagreed with them, but there were people who were saying when Robert Downey Jr. looked like he was going to leave the MCU, remember that a few years ago? There are people saying that's the end of the MCU. You have to keep Robert Downey Jr. You can't do this thing without Robert Downey. Now, I always disagreed with that. But you can't sell short the importance that people like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. and those central characters had. Again, I agree with you that I think there are great days ahead, but bigger and better and more success and whatever than what they've already had, I don't know. I think that's a tall order, dude. I think that's a tall order. But is it impossible? I don't think it's impossible. Obviously, you pointed it out. You're right. It's Kevin Feige. But I believe by 2023, he's not the head of Marvel anymore. You know that. I think he's the head of Disney Pictures. I think he's taking over Alan Horn's job. So I think he's going to have somebody else. But still, at the same time, never underestimate them. But listen, this is a big question, guys. And so I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. So the question of the day, I put it to you guys. I asked you guys, do you think Marvel's best days are behind them? Or are the best days still in front of them? And you guys said the following. I haven't looked at this yet. Let's go over and take a peek. So the question of the day, lots to look forward to and behind us, or still in front of us. We discuss this more in today's show, next 24 hours or so. So you can just go over to my Twitter, simply at John Campea. Go and cast your vote there. So again, 61.2% of you are saying that the best days are behind. 38.8% are saying the best days are still ahead. Whichever it turns out to be, I still think we got great days. I still think regardless, we have great days, maybe even better. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, guys. That will do it for all of our main topics today. But, before we go on into our live questions, and we're going to get to our live questions in just a minute, that while everybody is all bunkered down at home right now, we've been talking a lot on this show about taking this opportunity to get caught up on some lesser known gems, maybe some great movies that you might have heard of, you might know about, but maybe you didn't see because maybe they didn't get the love they deserved while they were in theaters. And we've been giving you our movie recommendations to check out at home. So Rob and I have been doing that. So I decided to get a buddy of mine to come in and give a couple of recommendations of their own. So I asked my friend, you know him, Christian Harloff, to actually jump on and talk about movies that he would recommend that we watch while we're all bunkered down. Let's see what Christian had to recommend. All right, Christian, with everybody bunkered down at home right now, I'm getting a lot of great messages from people saying, they've never seen Godfather before, and now they're watching Godfather. They've never seen a Fistful of Dollars, and now they're getting caught up on a lot of classics. But this is a good time for people to get caught up on maybe some of those underappreciated gems that are out there that maybe didn't get enough love when it was in theaters. What movies would you recommend to people to check out since they're stuck at home right now anyway?
Well, I got two of them for you, John, and I think that two of these movies, I think that they both got a lot of critical recognition for sure, and I know that at least one of them is beloved for those who have seen it, but I still think not enough people have seen either one of them. And the first one I'm going to go with is Hell or High Water.
Nice.
David Mackenzie directed this one, and it's got Chris Pine, Jeff Bridges, Ben Foster. Ben Foster, I mean, it seems to be like every movie he's in, but Ben Foster is one of the standouts of the film in general, but I also think it shouldn't be taken away from how good Chris Pine is in this movie. It's a modern-day Western, and Jeff Bridges is doing his best Jeff Bridges that he can do, and he's got a great scene in this particular movie that I don't want to give away, but it's something that happens more towards the end of the film, and it's some of the best acting that I've ever seen from Jeff Bridges. But the dynamic between Foster and Pine as brothers, Bridges as this cop who's playing this kind of cat and mouse thing to figure out where these guys are, these whodunit type thing. It's a really, I saw it twice in the theaters when it came out. I loved it so much, and it's a great watch.
And it was written by Taylor Sheridan, right? Like, who also wrote Wind River and Sicario, and like, he's really great. I love that dude. So I love that movie. I think that's an awesome choice of one for people who haven't seen it. All right, what would be next up on your list?
Second one, I think I definitely know that people who see this movie love this movie, but I still don't think enough people have seen it, and that's Warrior. And it is, to me, I know that a lot of like MMA people who are actually involved in the UFC maybe didn't get the endorsement that maybe I thought it should have had. But I think it's the most true to the sport that has been done so far. Because before Warrior, every MMA movie was like there was some kind of crime element. I don't know if you saw Red Belt, but David Mamet's movie where there's like crime involved inside of this thing. It's like everything, nothing treated it like a sport. This movie does. Joel Edgerton is this teacher who's kind of lost his job, and he used to be a fighter, and he goes back in, and his brother goes into MMA as well, and he's this kind of Mike Tyson figure played by Tom Hardy, and it is both centered around their past relationship with their father, played by Nick Nolte, who, as I mentioned before, with great performance by Jeff Bridges. This is a great performance by Nick Nolte, so much so he was nominated for the Oscar. There's I'll just say a Moby Dick speech that will just shake you in your boots watching it.
I love that movie. You know what? I remember at the time, too, because this action movie had a lot of legit MMA figures in it at the same time, and it was the first time for me. I mean, like, Tom Hardy's name was already on a lot of people's radars, but that was the one to me. And Joel Edgerton, that was especially the one for me that made me go, whoa, like, Edgerton is so legit. And it was exciting. But you're right, despite the fact that MMA was kind of on the up and running, it just really never got the audience that it deserved, because this movie deserved a lot better than it got.
It's one of those movies. Yeah, it's one of those movies that people see now and they realize how great it is. And like, oh, I wish I would have seen that in the theater. Like, we were telling you to see it in the theater, but now you get a chance to watch it at home. And it's if you've never seen it, you really should. It's a fantastic Fantastic movie.
All right, so your two recommendations, Hell or High Water and Warrior, those are two great ones. Thanks for giving some people now something else to watch so they're stuck at home. But listen, while in the meantime, where can people follow you and all the stuff you got going on online right now? Because you got a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, when you're done watching movies, you can watch the Movie Trivia Schmodown. You can watch 7 seasons of the Movie Trivia Schmodown. They're all on my channel, youtube.com/the Schmodown. And I also have a morning radio show that I do every day, Monday through Friday. So please come check me out.
All right, Christian, thanks a lot for doing this, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, John.
All right, that's our friend Christian Harloff. Two really, really good recommendations in Warrior, which got tragically overlooked, and Hell or High Water, Rob, another great one that just not enough people went to go see. Not enough people went to go see that. It deserved a hell of a lot more. Anyway, guys, let's now move on and start taking your live questions. You guys have been throwing a whole bunch in. Let's get over to them right now. Cody Cordy writes, movies to watch at home, a very underrated movie with Paul Walker, probably my favorite film of his, Running Scared. Speaking of great mobster and gangster, Chaz Palminteri is in that. He's like one of the most, he's like a staple actor you have to have in any kind of a crime movie.
Did I recently see it on a streaming service again? Like, I didn't watch it, but I seem to remember breezing by it somewhere. I'm not sure where. Maybe Hulu? But it's worth seeing. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't... It's not my favorite Paul Walker movie, but I agree. It's absolutely worth seeing. Okay, next up here comes to us from, where are we at? Mr. Hoover writes, hi, John. There are some more shows I recommend to watch. 1, Curse of the Oak Island. I'm not familiar with that one. 2, Gold Rush. Number 3, Samurai Champloo anime. Number 4, Parasite the Maxim. Number 5, Heaven is for Real. Number 6, The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby. Oh, he used to bum, 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 bum. It's the greatest, saddest piano music ever. Number 7, John Adams. If that's the one with Paul Giamatti, I really like Sam Adams. Number 8, Rhythm. Number 9, Parkland. I liked Parkland, as a matter of fact. I thought Parkland was pretty good, so I enjoyed that one as well. So interesting. I like the anime ones. I've never heard of a lot of these, but I'm sure a lot of you are probably at home going, yeah, I know that one. I love that one. All right, so thanks for sharing those, Mr. Hoover. Jerome Smith II writes, here in Texas, drive-in movie tickets have, I had somebody else write to me to say that like literally movie ticket sales at drive-ins have like tripled or more, which I think is great to see right now. I love seeing that. All right, Shuriken48 writes, the one possibility not being mentioned about AMC's future is that their market cap being that cheap would make them extremely attractive for a hostile takeover by other cinema companies like Cineworld. Normally, I would say that's not a bad observation. But right now, you know who else is really hurting financially as a result of everything going on? Cineworld. It's hurting a lot financially. Not to mention, they just did a takeover. They're acquiring, of course, Cineplex from the Canadian chain for a lot of money. I don't know that they're in a position to do something like that. But Rob, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours yesterday who brought up a really great point. Rob and I have a mutual friend in the industry and brought up a really, really good point to me. They said, you know, John, if you think AMC will actually go out of business, you're crazy, and here's why. Studios won't let AMC go out of business because we studios know we need AMC up and running and in business. They're the biggest theatrical distribution company in the world. If they were suddenly gone, he said, before they go under, you will see all the studios pool together some kind of like fund to make sure AMC stays in business. And I thought that was actually an interesting observation about that as well. But Rob, what do you think about the possibilities of like an AMC being ripe for a takeover right now in the current environment?
Well, again, like you just said, everyone's talking about, well, Apple's going to take over Disney. AMC is going to be taken over. That's like assuming we talked about one thing. It's one thing to put Onward up on Disney Plus. It's a whole other thing for some massive multinational corporation to make some crazy pivot to take advantage of the depressed stock market and jump on another company without any kind of real thought behind it. So running a movie theater chain is pretty unique. So I can't see that someone's going to suddenly go, yeah, let's take over. I mean, unless, you know, a studio decides to do that. But even a studio, look, I think what you said, the studios need AMC to run. The studios need Regal. They need these things because distribution is hugely important. If you don't have distribution for your product, what are you going to do? I mean, you've already got your streaming services. You want to kill movie theaters now? There's still $1 billion to be had for these Marvel movies. They don't want to see these things go away, at least not now, and certainly not during this period of time.
Right.
I mean, it's like if you have a forest fire and in the middle of the forest fire there's a ski resort, you don't go like, hey, man, let's go buy that ski resort. It's like, no, let's put out the fire because we all want to go skiing in the winter. And we don't want to own that ski resort. We want to go there and ski. That's a bad analogy. But anyway.
I thought it worked. All right. Next up is Corey, who writes, I don't hear many people talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the larger scope of the MCU because it's meaningless in the larger scope of the MCU. You would think it would be important with Kevin Feige in charge of Marvel TV right now. Why do you think it's being largely ignored? Well, it's always been ignored. The movies have always ignored Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has always totally acknowledged and tried to tie into the movies. The movies themselves have always ignored Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's nothing new. And one of the big reasons is Kevin Feige had nothing to do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, he made that. I remember during the Phase 3 announcement that a lot of us were at, he was specifically asked about stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He goes, I have nothing to do with that. And I think Kevin Feige has no interest in incorporating into things he had nothing to do with into the MCU. And yes, he's the head of Marvel TV now, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was already, they already announced it was in its final season. They got they're wrapping up that show. So there's not even any opportunity really to tie it in. And even if there was, I don't think Kevin Feige's interested in it. And then I know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot of fans, and I respect that. Personally, I always thought the show was a giant bag of crap. But I know a lot of you guys loved it, and that's great. So I celebrate that you got it for as long as you did. But that's why multiple reasons. Even if Kevin Feige wanted to incorporate it, which he doesn't, the show's coming to an end. So there's really not much point of it at this point. Anyway, Lithied writes, what if theaters start doing drive-in again? Last time I saw a drive-in was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Again, I think it's a great idea. And I really do hope that with more people rediscovering the drive-in now, that hopefully it'll give it a little bit of a boost to life moving forward. I mean, I doubt it, but I hope so. That would be great. Suthius writes, JC's answers 2 minutes. Mr. B's answers 2 seconds. I don't think that's true at all, but whatever. Okay, Simon writes, shout out to Rob. Rob gave the definitive best answer as to why he does not like Picard on his Robservation Season 2. Bravo, Rob. I gotta say, I have not seen, Rob and I have a definitive disagreement on Picard. Rob thinks very negatively of it. I think extremely positively. I think the show's fantastic. Rob does not. I gotta say, though, I have not seen the latest episode. And I've even heard from some people that I know love the show as much as I do, that have said this was most likely the weakest of the episodes that they've done, and that even they had some problems with the episode. So I haven't seen it yet. I don't want any discussion about it because I haven't seen it yet. But I will stand by that this show, there's no such things as reasons why a show is good or bad. It either strikes you as qualitatively being good or not. I think I have loved every second I've got to watch Picard. It has brought me a lot of joy watching it. It brings me back to Next Generation. I'm having a great time with it. Some others, like you, Rob, our friend Scott Mance, as well.
Boy, it was fun to see him respond to it the other day.
Yep. You and Scott Mance both not liking it, but yeah, it's just, it is one of those things a lot of people are going to have disagreements on, and I'm nervous I'm not going to like the new episode because I've liked every episode so far, but like I said, I've even got people who like or love this show even more than me who are saying, yeah, this was one they could have done better. So I'll probably watch it later today. I'm going to go out on a limb, Rob. And again, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't want you talking about it too much. But I'm going to go out on a limb and guess you did not like this latest episode of Picard. Am I accurate in that assessment?
Oh, John, I would say yes. You are incredibly accurate about that assessment. Yes,
man. A watch along, a marathon watch along of us streaming, you and I watching the entire series of Picard from start to finish for like a whole day would probably be very interesting.
You know what, though?
Be a lot of fun.
I think I need to point something out too, that when I watch Star Trek, it's like my religion, because I've been watching it since I was 5 years old. Obviously, it's been something that's been a part of my life. It's a huge part of my life, and I take it very, very seriously. So I probably watch Star Trek differently, than a lot of people. If you're just watching something for casual entertainment, I can see people liking modern Star Trek, absolutely. And indeed, that's what they've tried to do. They've tried to make Star Trek a lot more accessible to modern audiences, and I can't fault them for that. However, I feel that a franchise that has a over 54-year history that I have been a student of, an acolyte of, it doesn't work for me from that perspective. But you got to give it up for what they're trying to do. So a lot of people that do I can't criticize anybody that likes modern Star Trek, because, and there's even people that are like me that have liked Star Trek their whole lives that like it, like what they're doing with the new stuff. So you always have to be mindful of how different people come to entertainment, and they're not wrong. You're not wrong for loving Picard.
Yeah, it is so funny though that you can get it. But this is the beautiful thing about entertainment, though, is that you can get even two people like you and I who like a lot of the same stuff. Like you and I like a lot of the same stuff.
We do.
And yet we can come across something like a Picard that we can be so diametrically have different opinions on. And it's great. You know, it was funny because I was talking to my show yesterday, Rob. I was talking yesterday about how it's like, you know, I can't remember what the topic was that brought it up, but it came around and I said, listen, you don't even hear all the conversations that Rob and I have either about Discovery or about Picard, because we couldn't have more like fundamentally opposite points of view on it. And I said, but I love talking to Robert about Discovery, and I love talking to Robert about Picard, and we have completely different opinions on it. And I said, you know, this is interesting too, because you can get somebody like me who is so pro Discovery and Picard, and you know, in talking with Rob, I said, Rob will bring up a point and I'll go, you know what, that's a good point, because that is true. And you can get Rob, who's so opposed to stuff like Discovery and Picard, but I'll bring up something and he'll go, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. There's that. And it's just, I don't know, it kind of makes it more fun when we've got something we completely fundamentally disagree on.
Well, I mean, look at Star Wars, the sequel trilogy. I hate Force Awakens. You like Force Awakens, but we both agree about Rise of Skywalker, that it was incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. So,
I mean, even in the spectrum of, and that's, I think whenever, you know, everybody's so binary now. They're other than gender, but people are so binary about whether they love something or hate something. Like, if you, but I don't think that there's a spectrum. There's always a spectrum of how much you like or dislike something, and I'm always of the opinion that, you know, I learned long ago when the IMDb was a thing. You could pick the greatest movie ever made, and there's still somebody who will give it 1 star. Sure, they might be trolling, but there are people that genuinely, I know lots of people that, oh, The Godfather's overrated. Well, that just comes out of how people watch films. You know, people just like, there's a lot of opinions. There's also a lot of people that have certain, they know more or less about something, so things mean more or less to them. And everybody's a little different in what they know and what they're looking for, and that has to be taken into consideration. That's why I think that you and I, in a way, I think people watch this show and like our dynamic because we can disagree, but we agree on other things, but we can disagree on things, and we're not at each other's throats, and we realize that we like certain things in different ways, and that's okay.
And that's what film fandom should be, honestly. All right. Next up, we got to keep moving here because we still got a lot of questions in front of us. Let's see. Doug Tarnovan writes, who's cooler, Ferris Bueller or Marty McFly? Actually, Ferris Bueller is cooler. I like the Back to the Future is better than Ferris Bueller's Day Off, in my opinion. But just who's the cooler guy? I think you got to say Ferris Bueller, don't you, Rob? Isn't Ferris, or I don't know, what would you say?
I think Ferris Bueller is unquestionably cooler than Marty McFly, but Again, Marty's just a different guy. Marty's not looking to get away with things. Marty's more of a, Marty's probably a nicer guy. Marty would never treat his friend Cameron the way Ferris Bueller does.
This is true. That's true.
But what, you know what? It would be great to see. I would love to have seen a movie where Marty McFly and Ferris Bueller travel through time together. That would have been a team up.
There's a crossover for the ages. There's a crossover for the ages. All right. BW Rosa writes, thoughts on the direction Universal is taking and what other studios do you believe could follow suit? And do you think this could be a new trend? I have no idea what we're talking about, BW. When you say the direction Universal is, in which regards? With their high profile, like Fast and Furious movies, with their Monster Universe movies, with their, I'm not quite sure what it is we're talking about. So I apologize, but I need you to be a little bit more specific. That's all. Jay Master writes, hey, John, did you know that the new LG Stylo 5 phone has draw chat? It's really cool and excited. I recently bought this phone 1 month ago. I'm a big fan of the LG Android phones, and they really got cool upgrades. You know, I had a big LG phone. I bought one of the large LG phones, and everybody, I can't remember what the name of their flagship series is, but I had like one of the LGs. I really liked it. I really liked my LG phone. I'm not quite sure what you mean has draw chat. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, unless you mean you can draw live interactively, which is pretty cool. But I think there are apps that have allowed you to do that before. But listen. Right now, I use a Samsung Note 10 Plus. Okay, so that's my daily driver right now, and I love it. But I wouldn't hesitate in a second to use an LG phone. They've really gone by the wayside a lot. Like, they're kind of an overlooked brand right now. They used to have bigger market share than they do now, because names like Google Pixel and the Note series, the S series, all that kind of stuff are really some great dynamic Android phones. So like right now, I'm not going to get the 20. I don't see it as a big enough upgrade from the Note 10 Plus that I have right now, but I like LG a lot. And I'm going to have to look into that feature you're talking about, Jay Master, because that actually sounds like a pretty cool feature. All right, Mark C. writes, not only is both Shawshank and Green Mile both Stephen King, but they are also both Frank Darabont. That's true. They also came together on The Mist with Thomas Jane. Oh, I forgot that Frank Darabont was connected to The Mist. And by the way, Rob, a friend of ours, why am I freezing on his? I
don't know who you're talking about.
Sam Witwer. Sam Witwer was in The Mist. That was like one of his first big movie roles, was in The Mist. Was in that one as well. I like The Mist, by the way. I thought Mist was pretty good. And what a heartbreaking ending. That movie had a great heartbreaking ending.
Yeah, although that wasn't in the original story. I mean, he added that, and it's pretty rough. I think it's heartbreaking. I don't know if I buy it as much as I probably am supposed to, though.
I thought it was ballsy. I thought it was a pretty ballsy ending. We're not going to give it away. We're not going to give it away, but it's a pretty ballsy ending. Let's see. The Last Shady Walking writes, coolest weapon put to screen. Lights. Oh, no. There's nothing comes close. Nothing comes close. Lightsaber. It doesn't matter whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. I mean, lightsaber is the coolest weapon put to screen. Is it not, Rob? Is there a better one? I mean, Krull had that pretty good one, right?
Glaive. I was going to say the Krull glaive. What about the what about the firing sword from Sword and the Sorcerer?
Yeah.
No, I think a lightsaber. I you know what? Come on. It's if nothing else, the sound alone.
It's iconic.
Whatever Ben Burtt did. I mean, you know, I always wondered, like when Ben Burtt, you see the old Making a Star Wars documentary, how Ben Burtt was out tapping on wires to make the sound of stormtrooper blasters. Do you think the moment, like when he showed George Lucas the sound of the lightsaber, I imagine them both like embracing and doing like a jig, like one of those Irish dances from Titanic where they link arms and run around together, because those sounds, it's like one of the greatest sounds ever created for a movie.
And you know what? It was probably, I don't know if they realized how they were shaping film history. Like, he probably went to George, because I believe he got it from power lines. I believe he got the lightsaber thing from power line. He took out his field recorders. I mean, Ben Burtt used to literally go out in fields and go out with his sound recorders and get all these sounds. He got these power lines. And, you know, he plays a few for George, and then they probably go, like, they hear the, and they go, yeah, okay, that one works, and then they move on to the next thing. And I wonder if they understood in that quick little exchange, what do you think about this sound? Yeah, okay, use that one. They changed movie history right there, and I don't know if they even probably realized it at the time.
You know, when I think about Star Wars, there's two sounds that have been burned into my brain. One of them is the sound of the lightsaber, and the other is the sound of a TIE fighter.
I was going to say it has to be TIE fighter, right? The TIE fighter scream.
I mean, those two sounds are I hear them now. I hear them in my head. And it's such a. I don't think that there's ever been a sound and also the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive not working, which they've also used as the engine in Raiders of the Lost Ark for the plane at the beginning. And that it's those three. I mean, Star Wars is full of those kinds of sounds because they weren't library sounds. We'd heard library sounds in films up until that point, where Ben Burtt went out and made all those sounds up using other sounds, whether it's animals or power lines or whatever. And that's one of the coolest things about Star Wars.
All right, Rob, I want to do something here for a second. This is a little experiment. I want to do something. I'm going to have you take off your headphones and try not to listen to what I'm going to say. And then when I lower my hand, put them back on, because I want to play a little game. I'm going to see if I can guess something that you're going to say. I'm going to see.
Okay.
Okay.
Taking off my headphones, I can't hear you.
Okay. So
I can't hear you.
I'm going to ask Rob if with Star Trek, because he's a big Star Trek guy, if there was an iconic sound. My guess is he's going to say, you know that sound that you hear on the bridge that sounds like a submarine, like, pew 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 pew, like it's some kind of radar, that little whiny sound. I'm guessing he's going to say that sound. So maybe I'm wrong, but at any rate, okay. So he's putting back on. Okay. So here. So I wanted to. I'm going to ask you a question, and I just told the audience what I was guessing your answer would be.
Okay.
So we were talking about all these iconic sounds in Star Wars. That if you hear the scream of a TIE fighter, you know what it is immediately.
Yeah.
Let's go to Star Trek for a second, and the world of Star Trek. What is a sound from Star Trek that you'll just instantly hear the sound and you go, oh, that is so associated, that your mind is just forever associated with Star Trek when you hear this sound? What would you say that sound is?
The transporter.
I should have said that. I don't know what I was thinking.
The transporter.
You're right. That's not what I guessed.
And specifically,
you're right. That's
transporter from the original series, when they start sliding the controls and you hear the it's beginning the transport sounds.
Yeah, I should have known that. You're absolutely right. That is because the one I guessed you were going to say was just the ambient sound of the original Star Trek bridge with that little beeps. Like,
okay, you know what? I would have said something like that, but that wasn't one sound. You know, when I think of the ambient, the bridge.
You're
okay,
right.
If you want here's some other sound effects. The sounds of the photon torpedoes firing, and the phasers. The bridge, absolutely. The bridge ambience, and also the sound that was introduced in the cage or the menagerie of what an alien planet sounds like. They have this kind of
hum.
Yeah, the hum, and they showed in the cage that it was generated by plants in the wind. I never really bought that, but that sound too is definitely, it's indelible, you know?
Okay, we spent a lot of time on that one. We really got to fly through these ones, but I like that a lot.
John.
Let's see. Corey Marshall writes, "Hey John, watch Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon." That's spoiler alert. That's going to be one of my movie recommendations, probably someday next week. Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Immediately after you recommended it, I couldn't believe it flew under my radar. So good, guys. It is so good. But I will spend more time talking about it when I recommend it, Corey. I'm so glad you watched it. That makes my heart happy that you watched that. Mark C writes, top 10, number 10, The Matrix. Number 9, Captain Blood. Number 8, Braveheart. Number 7, Gladiator. By the way, not enough people put Braveheart in like their top 20. They just don't. Number 7, Gladiator. Number 6, Blade Runner. Number 5, Field of Dreams. Number 4, Raiders. Number 3, Superman the movie. Number 2, Return of the King. And number 1, Star Wars 1977. A nice mix of films in there, dude. A lot of love for sci-fi. Some great stuff in there. Well done, Mark. I like your list, man. All right. Jose Reviews writes, Josie Reviews writes, Minions 2 just got pulled. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Not a big surprise. Expect to see more pulled from July pretty soon, if for no other reason that they just don't have any marketing time for them now. Darkwing Duck writes, hey, John, big fan of the show. Here are some of my list of movies you should watch. Surf Ninjas, Oceans 11, 12, and 13, Austin Powers Trilogy, and the Monty Python movies. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Well, yeah, I mean, the one I would say is a diamond in the rough, because everybody knows the Oceans movies and everybody knows the Surf Ninjas. I know a lot of people that just love Surf Ninjas, man. So that's probably a pretty good one to put on there, Darkwing. Gabe Askew writes, so my wife loves 80s comedies. I love horror. We watched Tremors 1 and 2. Nice. That's a good one. And had a really good time with them. Any other films that you would like to suggest? Well, not 80s, but if your wife likes horror and you love comedy, I got to go Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is one that I think would be, it's got some good horror elements, but it's also a great comedy. So that's one. What would you recommend, Rob?
Oh, I've got two from the 80s. First, of course, is Return of the Living Dead.
Right.
If you haven't seen Return of the Living Dead, but also for more of a low-budget indie horror vibe, and admittedly, it's a little 80 cheeseball, Night of the Comet.
Oh.
Night of the Comet is a hoot. It's a hoot. And both you can get Night of the Comet on Blu-ray.
And then, of course, I mean, we got to say, how can you talk horror and comedy and not mention Army of Darkness? So that's another one. If you and your wife haven't seen that one, Gabe, that's another one to check out. Okay, James Welsh writes, my recommendation coming to Disney Plus in April, David Lynch's The Straight Story. I gotta admit, I'm not familiar with that one. Which one is that, Rob?
It's about the farmer who basically rides on his lawnmower. You know, his mower. He's got a rideable, and takes a long journey. And it's based on a true story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm fascinated. That's why I love getting these recommendations from the audience. I find out about some of these movies that I wasn't familiar with. That sounds great. I'm gonna have to check that out. All right. This is a placeholder name writes, I recommend Hairspray on Netflix and pretty good.
By the way, John.
Yes.
John. Rosario Dawson is playing Ahsoka Tano in Mandalorian season 2.
No.
Yes.
Well, what did I say about Dave Filoni and his self-obsession with the Ahsoka Tano character? Well, we'll probably have to talk about that one over the weekend. I'm not surprised. Dave Filoni has a totally self-obsessed obsession with that character. So I am not surprised in the least. But I do love Rosario Dawson. I do love...
That's actually really good casting.
Yeah. Actually, when you think, I mean, I don't like the character. I straight up don't like the character. If you don't like the fact that I don't like the character, go fuck yourself. But I don't like the character. But Rosario Dawson is perfect for that. I mean, she's perfect for just about everything. But I, who do not like the character, even I gotta say, you're right, Rob. That's some pretty bang on perfect casting. So, but no surprise. Of course, Dave Filoni's going to put that character in. Of course he is. Anyway, let's see here. Willow writes, if this lockdown drags on for a long time, the one thing I can look forward to is the evolution of the John Campea Show into Magic Mike. In all seriousness, I do hope you'll continue on with the top comment segments. They are fun. I really like the top comment segments because I go through I read through the comments every day on the show, or I don't read them on the show, but I read all of the comments, and I just realized, well, I should just be sharing some of these on the show. So I'm glad you guys like that segment. I like having it too, Willow. So, but don't worry, probably no Magic Mike segments coming anytime soon. Zach Keel writes, I'm pretty bummed. 2 weeks ago, I was very much looking forward to this day. I knew I was going to be seeing A Quiet Place 2, you and me both, brother. And I was also going to go to my wife's first ultrasound of our second child. Now I can't do either. Ready for this virus to end. Well, obviously, Zach, one of those two things was more important than the other. Absolutely. But you're right. We were supposed to get that movie. And, yesterday I was sitting around and I got my notification because, when you put something on your calendar, your phone will remind you. And I totally forgot. I was supposed to leave to go to my Mulan screening last night. And obviously that didn't happen. So it does suck. But dude, obviously you have more important things going on, Zach. So anyways, thanks for sharing that, dude. 50 Shades of Geek writes, it's official, John. Israel is in complete lockdown mode. No one is allowed to leave their homes unless it's for work or buying food. The police are patrolling the streets, making sure no one is outside if they are not supposed to. And yeah, we actually had a bit of a similar, somewhat of a similar situation going on here. There are people mistakenly saying that Los Angeles is on a, what did they call it? Basically a lockdown order that you can't leave your house. That is not true. Or stay-at-home order is what they're calling it. That is simply not true. And if you go to my Twitter, I actually put a link to the actual government order that came out. Now, a lot of what they're telling us to do makes total common sense, but I do just want to be clear with people who live in California, there is a difference because, for instance, under the new order, you are allowed to leave your house whenever you want. You can go out for walks, you can go on hikes, you can go to your friend's house if you want. It may or may not be the best idea to do that, but you can do that. Under the new California law that they put into place, it is not a stay-at-home order. You are allowed to go out. You can go do whatever. There's just things you can't do when you do go out. So all non-essential businesses in California, Rob, I think you probably saw this, have been ordered to close. Malls cannot be open. You cannot go to playgrounds. That's another thing they prohibited. So there's a bunch of things that's prohibited if you go out of your house. But people in California are still allowed to leave your house. Still, for the most part, staying. Like Ann and I, we will go out for a late night walk when there's nobody else on the street. We'll go for a walk, get some fresh air. We make sure no one else is around. We maintain social distance. We don't go within 6 feet of anybody else. We don't get into any groups. We don't go into coffee shops. We don't do any of that stuff. But just clear. But for the most part, you know, the other 23 hours of the day, we just stay in the house. And we hope everybody don't be like those damn fools down in Florida who are spring breaking it up and acting like idiots. Don't do that. You know, maintain social distance. When you have to, like, go out of the house when you have to, but when you do, be smart, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on, man. There's a lot of that stuff going on. All right. 50 Shades writes, I don't know what that means. Writing to us in binary. All right, Kenny J writes, hey, John, I was wondering what your thoughts were on people watching films on their phones. I've been curious about this for a while. As screen quality is getting better and better, I know some people believe no one should ever watch a movie on a phone. Here's my thoughts on that. I don't care. Look, I don't want to watch a movie on a phone. If I have any other option, I don't want to watch a movie on a phone. But you know, if I'm on a flight and I don't have my iPad or I don't have a laptop and all I got on my phone and I was able to load up a movie on a phone before leaving, there's nothing wrong with it. And I would certainly never say, Rob, that somebody shouldn't watch a movie on their phone. No, I think that's the worst possible way to watch a movie. But if that's what you got in front of you, if you don't mind it, go for it. But I personally don't like the idea of watching television shows or movies on a phone. What about you?
Well, you know me. I mean, I'm all about the experience of watching a movie, and one of those big experiences is the sound. I mean, I would prefer not to watch a movie on a phone. It's hard to see all the detail in the frame. But on the other hand, if that's the only alternative, if I'm sitting around somewhere and in an airport, if my flight gets delayed or something, I'll watch something on a phone. Hopefully it's something I've already seen before, but I mean, whatever floats your boat, wherever you're at. You know, if you're at the gym, you have your phone with you and you're on the treadmill for a half an hour or something, why not? Especially if you have headphones, you can actually hear it. But look, I would prefer to be at home, enveloped by my surround sound system with the subwoofer cranked up and feeling a movie. I like to feel a movie, John. I don't just like to watch a movie.
Yeah, even when I go to the gym, I used to just bring my phone onto the treadmill with me. I can't do that. So I actually bring my iPad when I was going to the gym, which is now closed. I just bring my iPad. I'm with you. I just can't stand. But I have no problem with anybody else doing it if that's how they want to watch their movies. Okay. Let's see here. Next up is Freddie Rodriguez, who writes, sends in a really large super chat. Thank you, Freddie. Hey, John, fellow Canuck here, hailing from London, Ontario. I love London, Ontario. I had some buddies up there. I used to drive up to London all the time. My question is regarding to an interview done where Brandon Routh revealed that his exit Legends of Tomorrow was not handled well. The article was on Showbiz Cheat Sheet. What are your thoughts? Oh, well, I haven't read the interview, so I don't know. I can't say this. Although what I do know is that both Brandon Routh and his real-life wife, who is also on the show of Legends of Tomorrow, they have both been written out of the show. And they are either just had or about to have their final episodes. I do know that that wasn't their choice. It's not like Brandon Routh said, hey, I've been doing this show for 5 years. It's time for me to move on. It wasn't that. They just decided to write them out of the show. Not because of apparently of any problems, just that we want to change it up, which I guess okay, but it's not something that they chose to do. So I'm not surprised. He's been handling it very classy. Like I've read some interviews saying, hey, we're just grateful for the years we've had on the show. It's been such a wonderful experience. We've loved it. But I'm also not surprised to hear that, you know, maybe he didn't like how it was handled and the fact that he got written out. So I'm not surprised to hear that, but I haven't read the article myself. Rob, have you heard about this? And what do you think?
Well, first of all, both Courtney and Brandon are two of the nicest people in the world. And, you know, Brandon's also a huge fan. And he loves this stuff. I mean, he loves this stuff. You can't find somebody who's more of a fan of comic books and Warcraft and genre material. And he's handling it the way talk about it. If he was Canadian, he would be the epitome of a good Canadian kid. And he's handling it with grace, and I think it's probably, you know, bums him out. And what's he gonna do? But yeah, I'm sure he wasn't happy with the way it was handled because I think he probably deserved better.
All right, and I do like Kevin Routh. I do like Brandon Routh very, very much. All right, this is why, because Kevin Rubio. That's why Kevin on the way. Our friend Kevin Rubio. Again, I always mention this whenever Kevin comes up. Maker of the greatest Star Wars parody fan film, whatever you want to call it, of all time, called Troops. Go look it up. It's the best thing ever. Kevin writes, top 10 movies about movies to watch during the quarantine. Number 10, Hugo. Number 9, The Oscar. I'm not familiar with The Oscar. I know Oscar. I'm not familiar with The Oscar.
Oh, it's about the Oscar. Harlan Ellison wrote it. It's a classic film that not many people have seen. Kino just put it out on Blu-ray. It is truly one of the best bad movies ever made. And it's a marvel to behold.
All right. So anyway, let's keep going. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Number 8, the 1954 version of A Star is Born. Number 7, The Stuntman. Number 6, The Player. I love The Player. Number 5, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Number 4, The Big Picture. Number 3, The Muppet Movie. Number 2, Sunset Boulevard, that I think Aaron and I were just talking about on the thing. And number 1, Singing in the Rain. Listen, this I like the films that Kevin has listed here because amongst some of the great ones that maybe you missed, keep in mind, this is a great opportunity while we're all stuck at home to get caught up maybe on some of the classics that you haven't had a chance. Sunset Boulevard, Singing in the Rain. The Player isn't as old as those ones, but The Player is great. And yeah, that's a great list, Kevin. Thanks for sharing that, man. All right. Jay Bling writes, if there's one thing that I take solace in during the crisis, it's this. Thank the movie gods, Avengers Endgame came out last year. Rob, can you imagine if everybody had been waiting for this big 10-year build-up, the final film, and all of a sudden it got postponed indefinitely? Like, oh my, that would have been harsh.
I would have been so bummed out. Let me just tell you.
That would have been nuts. So you're right, Jay Bling. That's Colin looking on the bright side. You're absolutely right. At least we already got that one in. All right. Eduardo O'Neill writes, part 1 of 2. I feel like the books that have very dense lore/world are better suited for TV because good writers can take that world and make many stories out of it. Books that are more about story and plot heavy are better served as movies because good adaptation can condense it into a neat little impactful package. Of course, it's not mutually exclusive, and going either TV or movie can work for anything, but I think that's the way it can help maximize potential. No guarantees, just potential. You know what? That's actually not a bad way of breaking that down, Eduardo. Like, again, I think lots of books that are just story and plot heavy can work as TV series. I think books that are very dense in lore and world building can work as movies. But I like that little breakdown of yours saying, generally this might work better over here, and generally I've never heard it put that way before. Rob, what do you think of Eduardo's kind of look at that? What do you think?
I think I've never kind of it hasn't been put that way. It's an interesting take. I don't know. Now I have something new to ponder.
Always good to have new things to ponder. All right.
Yeah.
Last question we'll take with Rob still here because he's got things he's got to do. Eduardo O'Neill also writes in again, with games, I think that the more cinematic the game is, the easier it becomes to adapt material directly. But if it's not that cinematic, you can still make it great. Just take the world and lore and general concept and make the best story you can. I don't know that I agree with that. It's an interesting take. I'm not so sure I agree with that specifically because we haven't seen anything to prove that theory out one way or the other, or disprove it, by the way. Nothing to disprove the theory either. I don't know, Rob, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I've been thinking about his previous question, and I could launch into a 10-minute answer for this. But I think, it always comes down to, in terms of adaptations or anything really, when you're trying to do something on film, it always comes back to the character and the story itself. And I really think that a game, for instance, a game is designed to let you be the protagonist. And the act of playing the game, you're the one making the decisions. And I know a lot of games are you're following a track, but ultimately it puts you in the position of the protagonist. And fundamentally, if you're trying to change that, you're taking the protagonist and you're moving the protagonist outside the player. So you have to make sure that the decisions or the characterization that you're seeing in a movie has nothing at all to do with the gameplay itself. So the fundamental nature of the story being told changes. And sometimes I don't think game adaptations can survive that. Because a story, if you're not playing the character, the story that's being told is fundamentally different if you have to set up all those things where you're just watching it happen. So it doesn't always work. So you have to make sure that the story that you're telling first and foremost is going to be sound. Can you take out the player from the story being told, the gameplay itself, and make sure that from a third person God perspective, I guess, it's still interesting to listen to or to experience. And I think that's hard to do.
I think that's a great observation. Well said. All right, Rob, that will do it for your time here today. I know you got stuff you got to run and do. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, we'll have you back again on Monday. But in the meantime, Rob, where can people follow you and all your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, where tonight, my girlfriend Elizabeth and I, we do our show whining about movies, and I showed her for the very first time Buckaroo Banzai. So we're going to talk about Buckaroo Banzai tonight. I've been showing her these crazy movies she'd never seen, she'd never even heard of. And she didn't know anything about Buckaroo Banzai, and she was, let's just say, bemused by it. So we'll do that tonight at 8 o'clock.
That is a great one to do. All right, Rob, as always, it's awesome having you here, and I will talk to you a little bit later.
All right.
Take care. All right. That will do it for the great Robert Meyer Burnett, ladies and gentlemen. And we will, of course, always love having him here, and we'll have him back again on Monday. For now, let's keep rifling through all the questions you guys have sent in. Sam O'Neill writes, hi, John and Rob. Sad news. My favorite burger place here in Brisbane is shutting down for good due to the virus. Also, I wouldn't have gone to see Bloodshot in cinemas. However, now it's streaming soon, and I think, why the hell not? I mean, that's one of the silver linings in this crap bag. It's like the person wrote to me and said, listen, it's a lose situation for us with Onward. It's a lose situation, but we're going to try to make the best of it. That's like us. Why not make the best of it? You know, The Invisible Man is out on streaming today. Check it out. It's a real fun little movie. Yeah, if you're looking forward to The Hunt, go watch it. I was kind of let down by The Hunt, but whatever. You can check it out if you like, because some other people like it. You may like it too. Why not make the best of that bad situation? And You know what? Yeah, check out Bloodshot. I think it comes out next week. I think it comes out on Tuesday. So there's that as well. So why not, Sam, make the best of a bad situation? It doesn't change that it's a bad situation. It's still a bad situation. But why not make the best out of it that you can? All right, Johnny 5 writes, "Hey, John, hope all is well." It is well. Thank you, Johnny. "A person I know recently passed away." That's really sad, man. "Unrelated to the pandemic. The services are coming up, and I'd like to pay my respects, but I don't think I'm going to go. I feel just awful. Any thoughts? Thanks." Listen, it's one of the unfortunate things in life is that not only do some bad things happen, but then sometimes there's really nothing we can do about it even after the fact. I was in a situation once because there was a mix-up with my visa initially when I was in the States, and I was in a position where until some things got straightened out, like I couldn't leave the States, because if I left the States, I wouldn't have been allowed back in until we got this problem sorted out. And I missed some things. I missed my sister's wedding. I mean, I missed, I'm not going to get emotional. My little cousin died while I was down in the States, and literally just days away from getting all my stuff sorted out. I was literally days away from getting all my stuff sorted out. And my uncle and aunt, their oldest, their only child, my baby cousin Christopher, who I'm not going to pretend that I knew real well, but he was my baby cousin. And I knew my aunt and uncle much better than I knew my baby cousin, because I'd been away for a long time. My baby cousin died suddenly, my aunt and uncle's only child. And through circumstances beyond my control, I wasn't able. I was trying so hard to get back for the funeral, and I wasn't able to be there. And it's just a reality. Sometimes not only do bad things happen, but sometimes bad things happen, and there's really nothing we can even do after the event to think things up. And listen, Johnny, if this is a friend of yours, I'm sure they know that you're thinking of them, that you wanted to be there to pay respects. But hey, listen, there's just some practical things that are beyond your control right now, Johnny, and it's probably the wise thing to stay home. And, you know, if their consciousness is out there somewhere, they know you're thinking about them, and that's the important thing. Anyway, it's good of you to even worry about that, Johnny. That's good on you. All right, Joe Hill writes, "All right, John, let's test your recommendation. It's 10:27 p.m., and I'm starting Stardust. I'll give my thoughts after. Very excited. I'm so glad." I'm going to pull my headphones out here. "I am so glad you're checking out Stardust." Again, that was my movie recommendation the other day, was Stardust. It is my new Princess Bride. I'm glad you're checking it out. Okay, Ryan Lohner writes, "A sorely underappreciated film for everyone stuck at home. Breaking Away. You'll laugh, you'll cheer. It's got everything." Which one is Breaking Away? Let me look this up here a second. Breaking Away. Let me just check this out quickly. Breaking Away. 1979. Directed by Peter Yates. Dennis Christopher, Dennis Quaid, Daniel Stern. I'm not familiar with this one. A small-town boy obsessed with the Italian cycling team, well, I like it already, vies for the affections of a college girl. All right. That sounds like a great unmentioned gem. Thank you for bringing that one up, Ryan. I love it when you guys get to recommend little films like this. Phil Corvelli writes, "Rob seemingly hates Star Trek Picard. How do you feel about it?" I love it. I already been, and actually a couple of these questions were sent in during our live stream gaming session last night, and they make it on the list. But Rob and I already talked about that a little bit earlier. I love Picard. I think Picard is awesome. Granted, I haven't seen the newest episode, which some people have a problem with. Caleb Gibson writes, "Secret to Mario Kart. Use Bowser. Oh yeah, and pick the heaviest kart. Then knock others off the road." You sent in that suggestion and then switched to Bowser and started doing that. Just started running people off the road, including me. An anonymous viewer wrote in, "This question is for Anne." Of course, this is for last night's stream. "I've already asked John this, but how do you feel about the new Transformers series?" Anne's not a big Transformers girl. And yes, she is a Hasbro person, but despite the fact that she's a Hasbro person, she's actually not a big Transformers person at all. And Sentence Henry Wright, "You guys are the best couple." Thank you for that. We had a good time last night. Murray Reich writes, "Those morons in Florida not adhering to the social distancing and partying instead should be ashamed of themselves, endangering lives. They sound like the mayor in Jaws that wants to keep the beaches open. What the effing world we live in." I know, listen, there's just no getting around it. I don't like to paint with broad brushes, but all those idiots in Florida are idiots. They're absolute morons. seeing these pictures of like a pack of 400 people all mashed together and jumping up. It's like, you idiots, I don't care that you don't care if you get sick. You're going to become a transmitter. You're going to get other people sick, who then might get other people sick, and people may die. I mean, it's just the most idiotic thing in the world. Look, it's not like we're asking you to go into a bathroom, close the door, and sit in a dark room for 2 months. Just don't get into huge groups of people. I get it. It's inconvenient, but it's inconvenient for everybody. Whatever. Let's see here. Murray Reich writes, I think the worst movies to watch while being quarantined is Battlefield Earth. Yep. The Room, Howard the Duck, Troll 2, Garbage Patch Pale Kids, because they will make you more mad being quarantined and want to instead go out of the house. That's the thing, Murray. We've all been focused so much, Murray, on the movies you should be watching. Absolutely don't watch these movies because they'll just make you want to claw out your eyes and leave the house. Although there are people who really do like Howard the Duck, but that's a good opposite way of looking at it. Thanos writes, why is the coronavirus taking away my accomplishments? I thought I was just being merciful. Oh, Thanos, even the Mad Titan himself is suffering some inconveniences and some slights at the hands of the current coronavirus. Vicarious writes, one of three. Hey, John and gang. I don't have much free time anymore these days as I have an 11-month-old daughter and my wife is taking night classes, so I'm on daddy duty most nights. Dude, you're a hero, dude. That is awesome. I was recently awarded a permanent work from home position. That's great. 2 months ago. And I never imagined I would discover a new passion for audiobooks as a result. I have finished the entire Witcher series and wow, what a fantastic ride. The wait for future seasons of the show will be even harder now. I'm now slowly working through the Star Wars canon novels. I highly recommend Lords of the Sith. That's the best one. I love that one. I'm so glad you like that one. You hear so much in the background that brings the story to life, such as lightsabers igniting and blaster fire, etc. Do you enjoy reading? And are there any you recommend? May the filthy be with you always. I'll tell you what, I love being able, when I was commuting and driving to work, and I would have like a half-hour drive to a studio or something like that, I really got into audiobooks then. Like I've been in audiobooks before, but it was, a couple of years ago when I was driving to the studio in Hollywood, I really got into audiobooks because there was like an hour a day that I was able to listen to audiobooks. And listen, the Star Wars ones, you guys have heard me talk about the Star Wars ones before, and Lords of the Sith is the best. But one of the great things about the new Star Wars novels is that their audiobooks are like full-fledged productions. It's not just somebody reading the book. It's somebody reading the book, doing all the different voices. They bring in the Star Wars music, Star Wars sound effects, all this kind of stuff. It's a full-fledged like radio play. And they're really good to get into. So I wholeheartedly second Vicarious's recommendation. Get into those and give them a shot because I think you're going to have a good time. And now that we're stuck at home, got even more reason to. All right, good recommendation, Vicarious. Jesse Lopez writes, with The Last of Us becoming an HBO series, do you think this cancels any chance of it becoming a motion picture? Yes. Yeah, I do. Maybe not forever. Certainly not forever, but for the immediate future, yes, that kills any chances of it becoming a movie version. It's unfortunate, but hey, hopefully the HBO series will be really good. All right. Chris Warden writes, hey, John, which would you say is cursed more, New Mutants or Khabib versus Tony? Despite many attempts, it looks like they won't be happening anytime soon. Dude, this will be like the 5th time they've tried to get that fight to happen, and it just doesn't happen. I will say the Khabib versus Tony thing has been more cursed. They have been trying for years and years to get this fight to happen, and it sucks. So yes, I think it's a great question, and I actually think Khabib versus Tony is even more cursed than New Mutants. All right, Luke1234 writes, being quarantined makes me want to watch Cabin Fever. That's actually not a bad one, Luke. That's a good recommendation. Unbeatable writes, movie recommendation, Who's Harry Crumb? Money. I was never as big of a fan as that one. I forget who directed. Hold on a second. I was never big on that. It was the one with John Campea, but I cannot remember who directed it. Sorry. Oh, it's not who I thought. It's a good thing I looked it up. It's Paul Flaherty who directed that. That's not who I was thinking it was, like at all. Not a surprise though, working with John Candy. He was also a writer on SCTV, which was absolutely amazing. I used to love SCTV. It's the one where, if you remember the poster, it's the one with John Candy on the poster climbing up the side of a building with suction cups. Anyway, that's one. It also starred, Jeffrey Jones, who also starred in not Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, who also starred in the movie I recommended yesterday, Mom and Dad Save the World. So there's that one too. Anyway, good recommend. That's one out of left field. I haven't heard anybody mention that one. All right. Let's see. Frankie Gouge writes, given the improving situation in China, possible that films on hold now might debut in China first. Oh, maybe quite a while before the rest of the world, probably still months away, but possible. You know what, Frankie? That's an interesting question. So if you believe government reports, the situation in China, which was horrible, is now improving. And they're saying life is starting to get back to normal over there. Normally, films open a lot later in China. What are the possibilities that the film industry may go, listen, we got money to make in China. Maybe now that theaters are open in China, let's put it, it's possible. Here's the one risk, though, they take. A lot of piracy comes out of China. One of the reasons China often gets movies after they're opened everywhere else is to try to curb the piracy of it. Because if it's already open everywhere, people can see it, then you can put it out in China. If you put them out in China first, you increase the risk of a lot of piracy. It might be something they look at in these extreme times with these extreme challenges, Frankie. It might be something they look at. That's not a bad idea. Anyway, Canada Rocks writes, recommendation, The Way Back. Oh, I like that one. Actually, I like that one. From 2010, by one of my favorite directors, Peter Weir, starring Jim Sturgis, Ed Harris, Colin Farrell, Saoirse Ronan, and Mark Strong, about a bunch of people that escape a Russian prison during World War II and walk all the way to India. Canada, that's a really good recommendation. Only, I don't remember Jim Sturgis being in it. Maybe I'm just thinking, hold a second. Sorry, not directed by, why, how, of course he was in, I'm sorry. I'm like, really, was that, yes, it was Jim Sturgis. I stand corrected. Good recommendation, Canada Rocks. This is why I look things up. Anton Sumitro writes, be your hero, stay at home. Yeah, listen, if you can go outside to stop yourself from being stir crazy, and avoid people, make sure you're maintaining social distance, stay isolated when you go outside, go do it. I mean, you got to go to the grocery store, all that kind of stuff. Again, try to pick times when there's not, just be smart. I think that's the thing. Be smart. That's why Ann and I, 23 hours out of the day, sometimes full 24 hours, we stay at home. And when we do venture out of the house, we stay away from everybody. We go when there's nobody out on the streets. We go for walks. When we see other people walking towards us, we'll cross to the other side. Just be smart. Just be safe. If everybody just used some common sense stuff, we'll get this stuff behind us quicker. But you're right, Anton. For the most part, just stay at home. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, now that The Hunt is available to rent, it somewhat has me tempted for $20. I got a bit of a Purge mixed with the cabin in the woods vibe with the game going on around and people controlling it. Would you recommend your fellow movie fan to watch it? It's tough because I was really looking forward to that movie. I was looking forward to The Hunt very much. But for some of you may have seen me talk about it, I was not impressed with The Hunt. I felt quite let down by The Hunt. The Hunt did not work for me. I wanted it to work for me. I was excited for it. I wanted to see it, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I watched it and it was like, it just wasn't, it didn't live up to its potential. It just didn't turn out being the movie that I wanted it to be. I personally do not recommend it. That said, there are people who do like it. And for them, it was the movie they wanted to see. So I would say this, if you are actually quite interested in the movie, don't let my negative reaction deter you, because there are a bunch of people who do like it. If you're on the fence about it, my recommendation would be to skip it. That's my recommendation. There are other things to watch. There are other great classic movies to get caught up on. So if you're on the fence about it, or you weren't really interested, I say just skip it. If you were quite interested in it, I say give it a shot because maybe it'll be for you. It wasn't for me, and that's okay, but maybe it'll be for you. All right. Thanks for that, Russell. All right. Right. Flash news. Chuck Norris has been exposed with COVID-19 virus. The virus is now in quarantine for 14 days. I thought you were being serious there for a second. Yeah, the coronavirus doesn't infect Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris infects the coronavirus. The coronavirus is now in quarantine for 14 days. I like that. That's a good one. All right, Anthony Lucalano writes, just finished watching The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Beautiful, and I loved it. Best of the trilogy. The score was amazing. Clint Eastwood was so cool in it. Sergio Leone is an absolute master of directing. Now on to Once Upon a Time in the West. It's seriously, I love that you're doing this, Anthony, taking the opportunity to get caught up on a bunch of these movies that are classics that a lot of people know, that a lot of people recognize, that you've never had a chance to see. Take this opportunity to get caught up on those. And I love that you are, because you're going to discover some shit, man, that now you're going to watch it and go, oh, that's why everybody's been talking about this all the time. And you're going to discover some really, really good stuff. Good on you, Anthony. Leo sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Leo. And as we do around here, when you contribute to the show on that level and you support us on that level, not only will I answer your question right now, but we'll also answer it in its own standalone video in the next week or two. Keep your eyes open for it. So let's move on to and again, thank you, Leo, for supporting us on that level. Leo writes, hi, John and Rob. Well, hello, Leo. In these times of man-made racial divisions, and since you love Shaolin soccer, I was wondering if you could talk about your experience with Eastern films and how it's influenced you. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Ooh, that's one I'll be able to go more in depth on when I do it as its own standalone video, because it'll let me think about it a little bit more. But Asian cinema, I think for most of us film fans, we've all grown up where kung fu movie, and I'm not trying to paint in broad strokes here, but seriously, kung fu movies on TV, the rerun and playing of kung fu movies on TV was for a lot of us an introduction to movies. Right? Because even when we were really young, these movies were on and on our televisions. We could watch them, and we get introduced to these grand story tropes, right? Stories about honor, and even the cheesiest ones, and revenge, and stuff like that. But even fast forwarding to today, I was talking about Shaolin Soccer, like one of my favorite comedies. It's just so good. But on top of that, you've also always heard me talk about my all-time favorite cop movie. My all-time favorite cop movie is an Asian film by the name of Infernal Affairs. Now, they did more of them, but the first one is my all-time, English or not, all-time favorite cop movie. And it is also the movie that Martin Scorsese finally won his Best Director for when he did a remake of Infernal Affairs. He did a North American remake of it, and it was called The Departed. And that is based on Infernal Affairs. And it's actually a very, very true translation. Like, The Departed is beat for beat the Asian version, Infernal Affairs. It's beat for beat, but he did such a marvelous job transitioning and bringing it and adapting it to a North American audience in such a way. It was beautifully done. Won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Won Scorsese his Best Director Award, finally getting one. It's fantastic. And there's a lot of films like that. Like, whether you're going to talk about the influence of Studio Ghibli, or you want to talk about Kurosawa, or you want to talk about like stuff like this, or even like now today, like the modern influence of Bong Joon-ho and things like that. There's just some fantastic, magnificent stuff. And so it has influenced me a lot. And I'll go into a little bit more when we do your own standalone video on that. But Leo, anyway, thank you for sending in such a great question. And thank you again for supporting the channel on that level, man. We really appreciate it. All right. Joseph Hudson writes, could the week before Christmas be a window to drop Black Widow into as only Tom and Jerry and the Croods are realized? You probably meant released that day. It's a possibility. Listen, the Christmas season is a very lucrative season. I mean, yeah, a lot of big movies come out, but there's a lot of people going to the movies in the Christmas season. Like, during the Christmas season when everybody seems to go to the movies. So there's a lot of business to go around. And so, yeah, I could totally see a move to Christmas. I could also see them moving it even sooner than that. Again, it all depends on how the rest of this nonsense kind of shakes out over the coming weeks. But I could see it even sooner than that. But other than that, I think that would be a great option for them, Joseph. I really do. All right. Cody Carroll writes, have you seen the toys that made us on Netflix? Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit on the show. They're great. Also, they have movies that made us on Netflix. We've also talked about that a great deal, but I'm glad you brought them up. Guys, if you're looking for some stuff to watch, the toys that made us, the movies that made us, both on Netflix, really good stuff, even if it's going to be streaming for at 25% lower quality for a lot of you guys. All right, let's see. Good Italian Kid writes, have you guys seen Shin Godzilla 2016? I have not, and I've always wanted to get around to watching that. This Godzilla is legit scary monster, unpredictable with disgusting body mutations. It's a very realistic and deep take on the franchise. I don't know how realistic a Godzilla movie would be, but quite the opposite of the latest Hollywood versions. You know, I've heard from a lot of people that really like that movie. You know, and also there's an animated Godzilla show out on Netflix. That also, Godzilla is not a hero. Godzilla is the monster. Godzilla is the threat, and it's interesting seeing on that. So a lot of people talking about that one, Good Italian Kid. I'm glad you brought it up to put it on people's radars. All right, listen, guys. Only have a couple of minutes more because I'm trying to keep the show to 2 hours since I've been having this experience where once the show is done streaming and then it goes onto YouTube for people to watch later, for like hours after it goes up, it doesn't start at the beginning of the video. So like if my show is 2 hours and 10 minutes, when people go to watch it, it starts at minute 10. When my show goes 2 hours and 35 minutes, it starts at minute 35. Like for some reason, so I'm trying to keep it under 2 hours. So we just got time for a couple more questions here. Java Man in Hong Kong sends one in and writes, have you heard movie critics in YouTube named Mark Kermode from BBC? He's my favorite critics currently and like hearing his opinion. Never heard person reviewing in soothsaying way other than him. Really appreciate his opinions. Check out Reviews on Paradise. Not familiar with them, but this is the thing. There's a lot of really good people. This is why I'm excited about YouTube. I keep encouraging more and more people to take advantage of podcasting, blogging, YouTubing. I believe more people need to lend their voice because everybody has a very unique take on movies. Everybody has their own unique way of talking about movies. And there's a lot of, if you're a member of the film fan community and we're in this lockdown right now, find these people, like Java is saying. Find these people, because I think you're going to have your own movie-going experience and movie talk experience enriched by people like that. So yeah, everybody should have their favorites, and good on you for finding one for you. Jerry from the block writes, where you at? We still got X-Men, Fantastic Four, and much more. Oh, for the MCU, sure. Listen, I agree. There is great stuff ahead. I just don't know that the best is ahead. When you look at the heights the MCU's already hit, I still think we got great stuff ahead, but I think the best is behind us. Much like with crime movies, I think the best is behind us with Godfather. Nothing's come close to The Godfather. But that doesn't mean we haven't had awesome stuff to be excited about. That's how I feel about the MCU right now. Hopefully, I'll end up being wrong about that one. Beelzebub writes, a person is smart, people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. Is that Joker? I can't remember. That sounds familiar. I think that's Joker, but everybody in the live chat is going to remind me if I'm not right about that. Seth L. writes, hey crew, my recommendation today is Guyver 2 Dark Hero. It stars David Hayter, voice of Solid Snake, and it's R-rated, ultra-violent, cross between Iron Man and Power Rangers. It's a 90s action movie, all in its full glory. I have never seen Guyver 2 because I did see Guyver 1. Oh, I saw Guyver 1 with Mark Hamill. Is in the first Guyver. And that was bad enough that I did not bother with Guyver 2. I'm not even sure I knew it was in existence and that it was a real thing. But hey, you know what? If you're saying it's good, Seth, I might have to check it out. But oh my God, that first Guyver movie, whoo, it's like the kind of bad that you write songs about it. It's so bad. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Man Mountain Gherkin writes, Star Wars Marathon today, 4, 5, and 6. It feels like coming home every time I watch it in hard times. A safe spot with friends, Han, Luke, Chewie, and Vader. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yes, on top of trying to watch all these new great films that you haven't seen before, like all these classics you haven't seen, this is also a great time just to revisit with old friends. I'm planning on rewatching all the Lord of the Rings films here pretty soon. This is a great opportunity to just revisit old friends, and I'm glad Star Wars is one of yours. All right, last one. Amir writes, Hey, John and crew. My movie recommendation for the long days at home is Dark Man, Liam Neeson, 1990, a fantastic movie from Sam Raimi and a comic character who, if I'm not mistaken, appeared on screen first and then the comics after. Great fun. Yeah, it's basically, he's this dude who has this accident that leaves him where he has no pain receptors anymore. He doesn't feel pain. They went on to make some sequels, some good, some not so good, and that's fine too. But yeah, I believe Liam Neeson was the star in the first one, so that's actually not a bad one, Amir. I'm glad you mentioned that. All right, listen. For everybody else, from Lanzo, Amir put in some other ones, Anthony Lucalano, James Hoffman, Robert Tari, and all the way up, do not worry. I'm going to do, since it's Friday, I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later this afternoon to make sure we get all caught up on all the questions you guys have sent in. You took the time to send in those questions. I'm going to make sure they get answered properly in a video today, later today. So keep your eyes open for that, and I will get around to that, and all your questions are going to get answered there. Don't forget, guys, we're going to have an open mic tomorrow, so make sure you join me for that as well. You might see Ann and I streaming some more games a little bit later. I'll let you know if we are. Keep your eyes open for that. So, guys, listen, thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here and being the awesomeness that he always is. Thank you to all of you for taking some of the time out of your day to spend here with us and your fellow film fans. It's always good to have you here, and a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported the channel while you were doing it, and all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys so much for that. All right, guys, as always, stay safe, be smart, check in with people, pick up the phone, because, if you're feeling kind of isolated, other people are too. Pick up the phone, call your mom, call your friends, have some discussion on the phone, jump on Skype or Google Chat, Google Hangout, have some watch-alongs together with your friends over Google Hangouts or whatever. Do the things you can do. Don't just think about yourself, think about others as well. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show. Love you all. Thanks for being here. My name's John Campea. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.